It was one of the best pieces of advice I ever got. One of the greatest session bass players of all time was an old friend of mine. He passed away a couple of years ago, and he said, "Say yes to everything and sort it out at the last possible moment." And that's a little bit of a mercenary attitude, but you get treated like that too. If you're a session player and the session's canceled, they're not going to pay you for it.
Hippies in the black belt, where are they now? We thought the racist devil was put to rest somehow. Slouching in towards Gethsemane with 30 pieces of silver and gold, waiting on the tribal clans of old. Tie-dye peace sign flying by pillared mansion.
Welcome to the Marinade, a free-flowing conversation about the creative process with creative people. Each episode, we welcome musicians, actors, comedians, authors, visual artists, filmmakers, anyone who creates art to talk about how and why we make stuff. This is episode 171, and our guest for the second time is Will Kimbrough. Will is kind of a living legend. He's produced Todd Snider, written and played extensively with Jimmy Buffett, is a touring member of Emmylou Harris's band, and on and on. His latest solo record, For the Life of Me, was released on May 3rd, 2024, and we caught up with Will via Zoom back in June for a conversation about his work with post-traumatic growth organizations, songwriting with soldiers, and the Warrior PATHH Program. We talked about writing with Jimmy Buffett, Will's wonderful new album, balancing all of these various plates, and so much more. Y'all, Will and I talked for a few minutes prior to the point at which I'm dropping you in, because his microphone wasn't quite right at first, and so it didn't sound exactly the way that we typically want it to sound. And I think we did a good job of circling back on some of the stuff that we discussed, but the talk about his work with songwriting with soldiers and the Warrior PATHH Program was mostly cut off at the beginning. The great Mary Gaucher got Will involved with that work, which I thought was a really cool detail. Also, if you can swing it, consider donating to those organizations. They're doing really cool work, and I didn't know anything about it until researching Will the first time that we talked. So check them out, and just know that when you're supporting Will Kimbrough, you're also supporting a real good dude. All right, everyone, for the second time on the Marinade, Will Kimbrough.
Okay. Is that better? Am I here?
Yeah, you sound great. You hear me?
Yep.
Cool. Okay, so when we left off, and I'm not sure exactly when it stopped recording, but you were talking about Jimmy Buffett, and you were talking about sort of like, you could tell he was sick, but he hadn't necessarily told you what was going on.
So I was able to use, you asked me if that post-traumatic growth songwriting ever wormed its way into my songwriting on a daily basis. And it really did when we wrote Bubbles Up, because his idea was about comforting someone who's struggling. And, you know, in retrospect, you have to, think, oh, was he talking about himself? But I really don't think that was not his way. And it wasn't that he would deny that he was struggling, but Jimmy was his way in the world was to make other people feel comfortable.
Mm.
And so he just had some reason that he wanted to write this tune, and the idea came from, he took the Navy diving course, I think when he was in his 70s, and they let him take it. And one of the final things you do is they drop you out of a helicopter into the ocean with your full diving kit on. And so, you turn somersaults in the water and you start sinking before you get, in the right position. And they always tell you bubbles up, because if you get confused, which it seems crazy that you would get confused under the water, you would just know that up is up, but it happens to a lot of people. They don't know which way is up. And so they tell you bubbles up. So that was the idea. And he sent me a photograph of like an old-fashioned paper date book with some stuff written on it. Not much. Looked like a little paragraph, and it wasn't even really a verse. It was like four kind of ideas. And so I used the technique from post-traumatic growth in a sense that I was like, okay, what is that? What does that sound like? What's in there that can be sung?
Mm-hmm.
And so, okay, I'm singing the part that can be sung. How can I phrase the next part that can be sung along with the way that line sings? I mean, it's just real logical, but at the same time, it has to work, and you have to, you when you're writing a song, you have to really love something about it to keep going. So I don't know if that's a good way to explain it, but I really did use that technique of just listening. I didn't have that much to work from, and it was written, but he had talked to me about it too. So I listened and I just followed it. I also knew that he wanted me to be me. He didn't want me to pretend like I'm him.
Ah.
And that's a big deal
Mm.
because with somebody like that who's a stylist that you think of a way he sounds, then you could just immediately like make a demo with some like steel drum patch on your keyboard and sing about your toes in the sand and
Yeah.
tequila. But this was different, and I knew it, and so I just went with it, and I sent him a version of the song that I mean, the music and the melody is basically what I sang on my iPhone demo that I recorded. I mean, I just record. I don't mean demo. I mean, I recorded into my voice recorder on my phone and sent it to him. And the song is not that much different. Lyrically, it's very different, um, except for certain lines. And so we just went back and forth. I don't know. I think I use it. Another thing I could just say is that it changes you to listen to people and be and have the task be the job be listen without judgment.
Mm.
It changes you, and I guess I'd have to be trained,
Mm.
retrained to listen with judgment to be able to do that. Because now it's like uh, you feel like everybody you talk to and listen to is like, I wonder if they're what they're struggling with. And I'm not trying to be all woo woo about it, but I'm just saying that it's eye opening, and it's eye opening, 20 times a year. And I mean, like I fly somewhere, I rent a car, I drive somewhere, I go, make a trip with the specific knowledge that I'm going to write a song with people that I've never met and I have no idea what they're going through. I could have an idea about it, but what's the point? Because it's going to be different. And so I think it affects me every day.
That's incredible. I
And
mean,
that's not why I started doing it. I started doing it
yeah.
because I was interested. And then I realized that it was part, it's not that I'm helping people, it's that I get to be part of a team that in a program that was written in some genius way that does help people. I just do what I already know how to do based on the guidelines of listen, don't judge, write down what they say, and try to use as much of their words as possible in the song and try to leave your words out as much as possible. And it's so you have to learn how to do this puzzle, and you can't give up. New York Times crossword puzzle, and you've had your third cup of coffee, and you're like, I'm not going to get it today. You have to do it, and you cannot leave the song unfinished. You're not going to rewrite and edit in that short period of time. But you're going to have something you can sing 3.5, 4 minutes long, whatever. Anyway, so I'm doing that. I'm doing that work, and it certainly affects me. And this album I made, um, having been doing that work for 5 years. So I think I was a different person. And I think I made the last three records during the time of working with post-traumatic growth,
Mm.
but especially the last three. Yeah, yeah. The last, yeah. So
Well, that's
it
interesting because
changes
I
your
feel
life.
like the last three, I mean, they certainly feel like they belong together.
Yeah.
So that's really that makes a lot of sense, and that those two things coincide. I mean, it sounds like this. I'm not sure I expected that we would unpack that this work that you're doing with first responders and veterans, like this work would have such an enormous impact on. It sounds like not only your process, but like that's a great that sort of lack of judgment is such a great way to approach life in general. And I wonder if it permeates, like your personal relationships as well.
I'm trying. You can get lazy with people that you know the best. And I don't mean
Mm,
lazy in a mean way. I just mean like you can let that stuff down. And I mean, I've been married for 30 years. And so I come home from that work very exhausted.
but
I mean, you're not going to transfer someone else's trauma to you, but it is exhausting. You're on 100%, you're full sensory. And that's what's so wonderful and addicting about it.
mm,
And at the same time, when you're done with it and you relax and take a deep breath and let come down from being on, then you're just worthless for at least a night.
yeah.
So anyway, I think it does go. It goes into the rest of your life, the other facets of your life. But you also have to watch it that when you're exhausted, the way you behave when you're exhausted, is not always top notch.
I'm interested in what you've had this incredible career, and I'm interested in you just talked about your schedule this week, which like in my mind is wild, right? You're out on
It
the
is
road with
wild.
you're out on the road with Emmylou Harris. You're doing this work today, and then you're headed to do the trauma related work. Like, what lessons have you learned about sort of how to balance all of that over time? I mean, that's a hell of a schedule, and you've been doing this a long time, and you
Yeah.
continue to do it at a really high level. What kind of lessons have you learned about balance and like how to manage it all?
It is the kind of life where you you go to bed thinking, I'm doing exactly what I should be doing. I can't believe I get to do this. And then you wake up going, what am I doing with my life?
Mm,
Because you have to do it again and you have to muster it up. And it is like, the chargers change for merch, wired earbuds in case my unwired earbuds don't work, with a digital analog converter so that if I need better sound, the water bottle's always got to be with me. Um, it's a lot of details, and you do just get used to it. You get used to checking the checklist and make sure you have your stuff. Um, and then I didn't drink at all for almost 5 years, and that was a big help.
mm,
In the last few months, I've wanted to have like a drink every once in a while, and so I'm starting to try to figure out whether I need to just go back to nothing. And that because there is it's a cycle of overstimulation, excitement, exhaustion, overstimulation, excitement, exhaustion, travel, 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 travel. It's all about the travel. Let's say I went to uh, Asheville, home, Colorado, Cincinnati, home, off to Florida tomorrow, and then we're down to the Gulf Coast in Alabama, and then we're going to Canada with Emmylou, and then I'm going to Arkansas and Texas, and it just goes on, and then I'm going back to the East Coast, and it's just the time between trips is very short, and
mm,
so it's just about how do I get to sleep, and I'm a good sleeper once I get to sleep, but I've got to read, like that's my nighttime addiction, really.
mm,
When I get to bed, I've got a Kindle now, so my wife can fall asleep before me,
mm.
and I read, and then I fall asleep, and I wake up like 6:30 with my dog licking my face, and so that's cool. Or unless I'm on the road, and then I just wake up by myself and go, "What am I doing with my life?" But so really, it's just that it's managing. I mean, I used to be more get up and go to the hotel gym or make sure I went for a run, and I'm more preserving of my rest now, and so I got to watch it because like the exercise part is a real important part of just your mood, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm not really doing it. I mean, I do it when I have days off and time off. I was in Aspen the other day and I took a hike, and the next morning I took a hike. They weren't very long, but I had like an hour, you know,
Yeah.
and I was at like 8,000 feet, so I was feeling pretty exercised. But you know, today I walked my dog for 10 minutes, and maybe I'll do it tonight. You know, you have to watch yourself, and you have to get in habits where you jump out of bed and get that coffee and go do your exercises. Instead, I'm like preserving my rest and laying in the bed, reading emails. And I got to do that stuff too because I have to manage my work
Yeah.
myself, you know. And even if you have a manager, which I don't, but if you have a manager, you have to manage the manager.
Okay, that was gonna be my question is if you had a manager with all of
No,
that to have to
I have a
manage all of
booking
that.
agent, and she's great, and I have a publicist, you know, Mike Farley, and I have a radio promotion person when I have an active record out, but I don't have a manager. It's the music business is not really set up for people like me to have managers anymore.
Interesting.
Unless you already had one way back when there was a music business to sort of deal with, meaning a label, a publisher, booking, you know, all the things that you
Yeah.
had to have. You know, I have a booking agent and a publicist that I pay for all of it. So it's not like I'm getting an advance from the label and then, you know, and then they do the promotion. It's not like that. So, and that's not a problem. It's just a fact.
Yeah.
And so a manager, one would think that there would be sort of a cooperative management you know, design by now, you know, that some of these big management companies, because there's even just in my neighborhood, there's several people who could really not only benefit themselves from a manager, but a manager could benefit from having them on their roster.
Hmm.
People that are self-sufficient, but every once in a while, like if you had a management company that manages bigger people and they wanted them for something, they could say, well, no, they can't do it, but I can get you this person to do your song for your movie or whatever.
Yeah.
No, they can't appear at the festival, but this artist can. And I think it would be a really beneficial thing for everybody, but I guess it's just not how it works,
It seems like a missed opportunity for somebody. Hmm.
especially me.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
no, I'm doing fine. I mean, I have too much stuff to do anyway, but um it is interesting, but I don't have one. And I have a booking agent, and I still have people call me and text me and Facebook message and Instagram and Twitter message and email and Telegram wanting to book me just through me, and it happens all the time. I mean, it really is like I get it too. It's part of this, the reason that a certain kind of music fan gravitates towards sometimes the less known people, because there's more of a you can have an interaction with them. And some
That
people want to go
yeah.
see Taylor Swift and only like Taylor Swift, you know, Ed Sheeran, the Rolling Stones, the Eagles, and other people mix it up, and other people just want to support the independent artists.
And for me, a lot of times I feel like I mean, I'm throwing out that don't judge ethos right now. But for me, a lot of
Right,
times those independent artists too, I mean, that's most of who I work with, right? And deal
right.
um are just better in my mind.
Yeah.
The music's better, the art's better. I'm just,
Well,
I'd rather listen to your records than Taylor Swift's records. I'll go ahead and say that. Like, and so
well, there is, and for an artist, I will say this too, that one of the things, not necessarily Taylor Swift, but she's a young artist, still relatively. Um, I mean, she is way younger than me, you know, half my age, but when you go see the big old artists, McCartney or, you know, somebody like the Rolling Stones, really when people go take a leak is when they play their new song.
yeah,
I mean, I've seen it. I've seen it with Stones. I've seen it with McCartney, and I've seen it with like Neil Young. Where you have these old lines who do have, or Jimmy Buffett. Sometimes I mean they have a, but not always though. Jimmy had some songs. Bubbles Up made a big impression. Of course, part of it was just the accidental timing of the fact that he passed away, and then he wrote this heartfelt song. With me. But so I mean, that's one advantage we have over being a legendary old artist is that when I play a new song, my fans want to hear it.
That's a great point, and that's so interesting.
So what advantage do you have over somebody who's rich and famous? Well, I'm 60 years old and my fans still want to hear a new song.
How does it feel to kind of have one foot in both those worlds? You work with icons,
Yeah.
right? And then also live this independent artist life where people do want to hear the new stuff. And
Well,
how conscious are you of that? And is there a difference in the way you navigate those worlds?
I don't, it's not a big difference for me because my role is really as a creative person. And so, I mean, if I'm writing with somebody and they say, no, this is for this specific purpose and we can't put that in there, then I'll go with the program,
Mm,
check it out, see what happens. If I'm writing with Buffett, I mean, his songs he cut on this most recent record were all 5 songs we wrote together and with some other writers too. On previous records, he had done a few songs that I wrote by myself or wrote with another writer, or he decided he wanted to rewrite some lyrics, so he became one of the writers. And to me, it all kind of works out the same. It's like I'm offering up what I think it like a melody or chord sequence or lyric or tempo or style might be, and I can contribute and I can switch. If somebody's like, no, I want it to be West African picked guitar, okay, I'll give it a shot. I've got a couple of those Ollie Farkatori records and a copy of Graceland. I can, and I mean, I can try different styles. That comes
mm,
from a lifetime of being a music fan and having a big record collection and eclectic taste and being a session musician.
mm.
And that's great. And that doesn't mean that I always think that I know the better way to do it, but I always have a way to do it. I have an idea. And that's comes with experience. When you're younger and somebody tells you your idea is, like in the studio, it's fast. It's like, hey, I got an idea, play it. And they're like, no, no, no. But what else? When you're younger, you're crushed for like 10 seconds. Oh God, that was such a great idea. And then later in life, you're like, it was just an idea. That's it's not going to go away. It's in
Mm.
there. It's just part of me. So I'll use it for something else. Or it's just not a big deal. So I take all part of it is for me, huge part of it is just this the cumulative experiences. One day I'm in the studio as a producer. Next day I'm a songwriter. Next day I'm a session musician. The next day I'm on the road playing my own show. The next day I'm with Emmylou. The next day I didn't plan it that way, but I was capable of doing it, and also found out that I thrived with that variety. And again, back to that theme from earlier, there's the exhaustion angle where you do finally run out of juice and you need to recharge.
Mm.
But you do know that adrenaline will always be there when you walk out on stage. I used to freak out that I got sleepy before a performance. And now I understand that that's just a natural sort of nerves thing that makes you kind of like this. And then when you walk out on stage, adrenaline's just like bam.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like 99.9% accurate that that'll happen. Every once in a while, you're really exhausted and it doesn't happen as much as you hoped. But the rest of the time, it's like, okay. And it is, you have to watch it. I mean, different people have different ways of coming down and they discover different ways. It could be alcohol, drugs, sex. For me, hopefully it's like have a snack and read my Kindle in the dark and fall asleep because I've, done all that other stuff.
Yeah.
And, and it leaves you more tired. Anyway, I mean, it
Yeah.
depends on who. If my wife's on the road with me, it's different. But, um, so anyway, yeah, to me, it's all stimulating and stimulation is what makes you have new ideas. And then and new ideas are what make you have new songs, and new songs are what make you happy and continue to have a career and have be relevant. There's always this word, who's relevant now? It's like, well, I'm relevant to myself if I have a new song.
Mm.
And if I have a new record, I've got to have the discipline to just play those new songs along with old songs for an audience so that I get my message across that I've sort of crafted for this moment, and then wait until the next record to, start playing those new songs again. I mean,
It,
I don't have to do that, but I choose to do that.
yeah. Is there like an element of a couple times now I've sort of had this thought in my head as you've been talking. Is there an element of like chasing sort of trying to think how to phrase this, like maybe chasing a high when it comes to the work that you do, like because when I look at your career, I just think there are a lot of moments in your career that are just like unbelievable. I
Right.
mean, just incredible moments in your career um that have to like sort of set the bar at a different place, right? And you keep raising the bar, and especially with your solo work. I feel like I love your solo work as a whole. I feel like this new record is the best of them. And
Mhm.
so I'm interested in like, is there sort of a chasing of a high kind of thing, or is there like a raising of a bar that you're aware of, or are you just sitting down to do the work every day?
I think the height of the bar just comes to you. I'm just reacting to what one thing I'm seeking things like putting an album out, and I'm hoping that it'll get played, people will like it, it'll get good reviews, audiences will grow. I'm hoping for that. I can't really control that much, but I can hope for it and go work towards it and invest in that. And then the rest of it is like saying yes or no to opportunities. And I have a lot of opportunities, and I say yes to a lot of them because I'm in my fifth decade of being a self-employed freelance person.
Wow.
So you say yes. It was one of the best pieces of advice I ever got. One of the greatest session bass players of all time was an old friend of mine. He passed away a couple of years ago, and he said, "Say yes to everything and sort it out at the last possible moment." And that's a little bit of a mercenary attitude, but you get treated like that too. If you're a session player and the session's canceled, they're not going to pay you for it.
Uh,
They're just sorry, she's sick today or whatever. She's got a sore throat. He broke his elbow. It's off. And you're like, okay, I guess I'm not working today. And you get used to that, and so you get used to booking everything. And I'm not mercenary about it, but I will. If I'm juggling some things in the fall right now that I'm trying to figure out whether I want to make the most money or do some things that I'm super in love with and loyal to. What do you do?
yeah.
So
Yeah.
and I know it's sorting itself out as we go, and I'll sort it out in the next probably few hours. Um, but anyway, and also you find out whether you're suited to what you're doing. And
Mm,
there's things that fall by the wayside because you choose not to do them. And after a while, they quit calling you for it. Instead of
mm.
just having to say, "Go piss off, I don't want to work with you." You sort of go, "Well, I'm not available." And most of the time, that's 100% true. But also, if you're not available, it can be for whatever reason you want. I can say I'm not available because I want to sit here and drink tea, read a book, but I rarely do that. But anyway, it's I have just found that being busy makes me a happier, you know, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy.
Yeah.
And as they say in The Shining, but
Mhm.
and I don't want to end up like that guy. But Shelley Duvall in the bathroom with the axe. I'm
Yeah.
not I don't want to do it.
All right.
But here's Johnny. But anyway, I like being busy, and I've
Same.
whittled it down to these main things that are like, who wouldn't want to sing and play with Emmylou?
Right.
And then songwriting with soldiers, Warrior PATHH, post traumatic growth work. It's mind expanding, kind of heart expanding, mind blowing. Doing my own work is the same as it's always been. It's up to me. I've learned how to a way to make music that I can represent as a solo artist, literally troubadour with a guitar or with a band. Um, writing with other people, I've learned to relax and just be myself, offer what I have, not try to be them, not try to do the obvious, just offer what I have that day, not worry about it. Um, and as a producer, I try to pick projects that I really care about because it's a lot of work. And there's a new Shamika Copeland record coming out in
Cool.
weeks, and it'll be the fourth in a row I've produced and the fifth I've worked on, and I think I co-wrote 7 or 8 songs on it. So that's another, outlet for me. Is like these ideas of what Shamika's going through in her life, what she's paying attention to, and we write songs for that. And so this record's got. I mean, here's another thing I get to do, right? I mean, I'm working on Shamika's record. One week we had Jerry Douglas,
Wow.
Luther Dickinson,
Wow.
Charlie Hunter, Deshaun Hickman, who's a Sacred Steel player, who's friends with Charlie, and I get to interact with those people. And when Jerry and Luther were in the studio on separate days, both of them were like, "Can you?" I had already put my guitar down on the recording, and they were like, "Can you play live with me, so we can play together?" So I spent all day playing with Luther. I spent all day the next day playing with Jerry, and I'm
Wow.
getting paid to do this. And and there's songs that I co-wrote. Shamika's singing them, but I created these songs too.
Yeah.
So I mean, how much better is that? And then then I go back home and work on my record,
Yeah.
and then I go play with Emmylou, and then I go write with. It's just it's such a full life that I can't even believe that I get to do it. And so that's kind of what these records are about paying attention to the world and saying, well, I feel like I should comment on this, but I also have to say that I'm grateful. You
Well,
know,
that
and I've got to go. I've got an 11:30 thing.
okay. All right.
But we can, if you want to continue this, we can at some point. It's just up to you.
You've given me so much, and I'm grateful for it,
But I
Will.
think
And
that, but
so,
that's my wrap up is that
yeah.
I've gotten all these opportunities and I've whittled it down to only these like 10 things that I do all the time, which
Yeah.
is a lot, but they're all about being creative and supportive and being friends and being expressive. And that's exactly what I signed up for. I remember, and I'll wrap it up right here. I sat at a corporate conference table on the sixth floor on some high floor on Avenue of the Americas in New York when I was signed to a big corporate label in the late 80s. And I thought, I do not belong here. I belong on the stage, in the studio, in the writing room. I don't belong here. And I've never felt different about that. I've felt fine. And it's no slag against the people who do the business, but I just didn't feel like strategizing some marketing scheme for my band was where I belonged.
Mm.
And I think that is for most creative people, unless they're a certain kind of person that has that as well. So I've figured out a way to do it without having to do that.
Wow.
So lucky me.
What a life. What wisdom. Thank you so much, Will. This
Thank you,
has been
Jason.
amazing. I appreciate you,
Thanks,
man.
man. Talk to you soon.
Alrighty. Sounds great. Take care.
Take care of yourself.
Thank you. Will Kimbrough, y'all. Thank you so much, Will. Thank all of you for listening. WillKimbrough.com for all things Will Kimbrough. The song you're hearing in this episode is I Don't Want to Start a War, which is about a guy who gets into the Grateful Dead in the 1980s, only to find himself on the other side of the societal and political spectrum 20 years later as he storms the Capitol on January 6th. It's fictional, but also very real. And I think one of the things that Will is so good at doing is discussing the current political moment, and this album is full of those examples. It's a timely record. Check it out. Go get you a physical copy at willkimbrough.com. MarinadePodcast.com for all things The Marinade. Follow us everywhere that you follow. Subscribe and give us a 5-star rating on your podcast app. Tell a friend about the show. These are all free ways to support The Marinade. Go do that right now while you're listening, please. It makes a big difference for us and costs so little of your time and energy. Also, please follow Life's Greatest Hits on Instagram so you can get updates about my new podcast with my dear friend Jordan Foley. The first episode comes at you at the end of this month. Stay tuned. We have a really cool thing going, and we're incredibly excited about it. If you really like what we're doing, please consider joining our Patreon community. Just $2 a month, y'all. You can gain access to Patreon exclusive content like our show Jason's Journey, where I talk about the moments that shape my creative life, and provide a window into the process of making the marinade. One of the best days of the month for me is recording What We're Getting Down On with my dear friend, the brilliant and hilarious Peter Haraldson. And it's about the art that has us fired up at the moment. Y'all, you can now try a free trial of Patreon to see if you like it. No pressure. Try it for 7 days. Set a reminder on your phone in case you want to cancel and keep going if you dig it. If you want to support the show financially, but you don't want to commit to a monthly subscription, I totally get that too. You can Venmo or PayPal us. It's just at the Marinade. All the money goes right back into the making of the show. We just got back from Bonnaroo just a few weeks ago. I published my Saturday recap of Bonnaroo, and Thursday's up, and I don't know why I skipped Friday, but it is finished, and I'll put it up today so you can kind of get those Jason's journals. I try to put you in the action. I try to put you kind of sort of right there on the farm, which is just such a pleasure, and I'm so grateful to our Patreon patrons for helping make that happen, and all of you for listening, regardless, for helping make that happen. We've established a reputation that we're going to do good work, and festivals keep saying yes and inviting us, and I'm so grateful for that, y'all. Above all, I'm just thankful that you listen and spread the word about the Marinade. Until next time, go out and create something. Cheers, y'all.